Om Ajnanatirmirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chaksurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Gurave Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tad Bhaktaya Namo Namah. Yam Pravajantam Anupetam Apeta Krityam Dvaipayano Virahaka Tarajuhava Putreti Tanmartayottarvo Bhinedustam Sarva Bhutta Hridayam Munimanatasmi. Shri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhuttade Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Hare Krishna, Radhe Radhe. Welcome back. So today we'll continue reading from the lecture of Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And he is speaking about how Arjuna is surrendering to Krishna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. And he is trying to make a solution to his sufferings and his problems of life. Aren't we all? And therefore he is inquiring from Krishna about transcendental subject matters. He has realized that he is suffering and he wants to be free of that. So he's looking towards such a perfect person as Krishna to offer him some guidance and some advice in how to be eternally happy. As Srila Prabhupada was saying last time, the end, happiness is the object of every pursuance. The end of every pursuance is happiness. That is why everyone is doing anything that they do, is because they think that by doing this, I will be happy. But yet we're always frustrated in that pursuance, because none of these things can make us eternally happy. So, we'll hear from Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada is saying here that Arjuna or Sanjay has referred to Krishna here as Hrishikesha. And Prabhupada is saying that we should try to understand the meaning of Hrishikesha. This is a name for Krishna. Prabhupada is saying Hrishika means senses, and Isha means Lord. Therefore, Krishna is the Lord of the senses. Similarly, Govinda, the name Govinda means he who is giving pleasure to the senses. Go means senses. Go also means cow and land. And Inda means pleasure. So Govinda is one who gives pleasure to the cows, the land, and the senses. He is Govinda. And Prabhupada is saying Hrishika means the senses, Indriya, and Isha means the Lord. So whatever senses that we have, the proprietor of the senses, the Lord of those senses, is Krishna, is God, Prabhupada is saying here. And he says, just like we are sitting in this room is allotted for our sitting under some consideration of rent or whatever it may be. But ultimately, this room is not ours. That is a fact. We should not consider that I am the proprietor of this room. Although I may use it to my heart's desire as I like, that is a different thing. But as soon as there is some misunderstanding, or the landlord says, now you cannot be in this room, you should vacate, then I have to vacate. Similarly, Prabhupada is saying, our body is also like a room. This body is given to us by God under certain conditions. And as soon as God likes that you should vacate from this body, then I have to vacate. Nobody can allow us to stay here. Right? So that's such an amazing example here, that we cannot simply go anywhere and do anything as we please. Under certain conditions, we are allowed, just like Prabhupada is saying here, if you're renting an apartment, then you are paying the landlord, the person who owns that building and that land. You're renting that space for a certain amount of time. And as soon as the landlord says you should get out from here, you have no choice but to leave. And if you don't leave, then the landlord will call the cops and they will force you to leave. And so Prabhupada is saying that our body, similarly, if you think, well, we are the soul inside of the body. We are a tiny particle of the potency of the Lord, and we are seated in the heart of this body. And as soon as God likes that you should leave this body, then we have to leave. And nobody can keep us in this body, no matter how much we want to stay in it. This body is given to us by God under certain conditions. So Prabhupada is saying here, just like my hand, suppose if my hand is paralyzed, so long as there's power from the Supreme Lord, I can use my hand. Otherwise, if my hand is paralyzed, then there's no remedy. There's no remedy. So, we are not the owner of this body. We are not the owner of our senses. The senses are hired from the Supreme Lord. This is a very subtle understanding. One should know. Therefore, the actual proprietor of the senses is God. So, we are only able to do anything and perform any activity because God allows us to. God has given us, Gurudev would say, God has given you very good intelligence. God has given you, right, two hands. Some people, they're born with no legs. Some people are born blind. Some people are born paralyzed or having so many different diseases. And this is all the arrangement of the Supreme Lord. Everything that happens to us is the arrangement of God, and it is His mercy. And according to whatever activities that we perform, we get that reaction. And nobody is, again, no one is free from that. And as soon as Krishna wants, he is all powerful. He can make our hand paralyzed and say, "Huh, you are misusing your hand, so stop using it. I am paralyzing your hand." Right? If you're doing so many nonsense things, then you are punished for that, and you are not allowed to continue doing those things. And so everything has to be sanctioned and empowered by the Lord. Therefore, we are not the ultimate owner of our bodies and our senses. And just like we're not the owner of some apartment, if we are doing some very nonsense activities in the apartment and throwing parties and destroying things and committing so many crimes, we will be asked to leave the apartment. We will be forced to leave, and we may even be put in jail to suffer so much punishment. So if we are misusing this body and our senses, Krishna will take us out from the body, and he will bring us to some kind of hellish condition of life in the hellish planets. Right? So this whole world is divided into 14 planetary systems. And we're in the middle in Bhu-mandala, the earth plane. And there's the heavenly regions, and then there's the hellish regions. And then beyond the whole material world is the spiritual world of Vaikuntha, where you never come back to this endless cycle of birth and death, going from heavenly to hellish to earth to, anywhere in this 14 planetary systems. And if someone is very sinful and killing others and engaged in so many sinful activities, then Krishna will say, you have to stop doing all these things, and you should go to the hellish planets to suffer for all of these terrible things that you're doing. In the 5th canto of Śrīmad Bhagavatam, we hear about so many terrible reactions to performing so many various kinds of sinful activities. We won't go into that now, but the point is, Prabhupada is saying here that if I am the proprietor of this tape recorder, then it should be utilized for my purpose. Anything that I own should be utilized for my purpose. So if God is the owner of our senses, then the senses must be used for God's purpose. That is the constitutional position. When the senses are used for anything other than God's purpose, that is material life. But when the senses are purified and they are used for God's purpose, then that is natural life. Right? So if we own anything, like some kind of tape recorder or some kind of car or anything, and that thing belongs to me, then naturally that thing should be used for fulfilling my desires and for my purpose. And if it is used for anything other than that, then this is not proper. Similarly, God is Śrī Īśopaniṣad. He is the Lord of the senses. He's the owner of everything, the owner of our body, the owner of our senses. So if it is used for anything other than serving Krishna, then that is bondage, that is conditioned life, that is against our natural position, that is against the natural state of life, because everything that belongs to God, which is everything, should be used for His purpose and serving Him. So when we're in our lives, we can think, are my senses being used to fulfill God's purpose and God's desire? What is His desire? Right? God's desire is that we love Him and serve Him, and also that we help other people come to Him and love Him and serve Him. I remember asking one devotee one time, Srila Bhakti Swarup Sridhar Maharaj, because we hear in the scriptures that everything that you do should be to try and please Krishna. And I asked him, how can we please Krishna? And he said, by telling other people that that everything that they do should be to please Krishna. Right? Because if you were to tell that to somebody, then they would tell that to everybody that they knew and everyone that they knew. And then everyone would understand that everything that we do should be to please Krishna. And Krishna is only pleased by giving our hearts and our love to Him. And so the point is that Krishna wants, like again, Srila Gurudev always says, Krishna is weeping for us. We are separated from Him in this material world, and He only wants that His eternal beloved servants should come back to Him and serve Him with love and affection. This is all Krishna wants. And it's very simple. So all of our speech, all of our thinking, all of our activities in this world should be used for serving God and for God's purpose, and understanding what is God's purpose and helping other people also understand that. And then there's no more problems. And that is the proper constitutional position of the living entity and everything. Instead, we are taking what rightfully belongs to Krishna, our senses, and we are engaging them in our own whatever we want to do. Srila Prabhupada, he would give the example sometimes that if you work for a company, then all of your activities and all of the paraphernalia that you use, like your stapler or your computer or whatever it may be, all of those things should be used for the purpose of fulfilling the desire of the boss or the CEO, right? That makes sense. If we are on the job and we are using all of our tools and all of our time for our own purpose and not the purpose of the boss, then we will be fired and they will take everything away from us and we will be thrown onto the street, because the boss and the CEO is the owner of all of these things. And if you are surrendering to the boss and giving him your time, then the boss will reciprocate and give you a payment, a reciprocal payment for your time and your energy. But if your energy is being used for your own purposes and not the boss's purposes, then there's no exchange, and you will not receive any payment, and you will be sent away, you'll be fired. So that is our condition here in this material world, and in general, we are working for Krishna. We are Krishna's employees, and He has created this whole world, the whole manifestation of life itself, so that his purpose can be served. He is the supreme enjoyer, and he wants to enjoy in so many various ways, in so many loving exchanges with his devotees. And so therefore, all of our activities and all of our mental activities and verbal activities should be used to try and please him. And this is a very deep topic, but that's the basic understanding. And if we surrender and do a good job, then we will get promoted, right? If you are working a job, gradually, if you are a surrendered and very obedient and very good employee, then you get pay raises and you get much more facility, and right, you get a higher position like this. So it's said that if in this world you're following religion very nicely, then you can be promoted to the post of Lord Brahma, who is in charge of this whole universe, who creates this whole universe. You can be promoted to the position of being Lord Shiva, who is doing so many universal affairs and has so much power like this. You can be promoted to the position of a very powerful demigod and have so much facility. You're managing universal affairs and having so much facility for material enjoyment. Of course, the devotee does not want this. The devotee only wants to serve the Lord with pure love. He doesn't want anything in return from Krishna. But this is the principle, that the more we can please our master, then the more that we will also be happy. Not wanting anything, but because we want to see our master happy. That is where we get our happiness. Like if in a, like Prabhupada would say that if you're working for a company, then you get a very nice company car, you get a very nice uniform, you get very nice things by which you can serve the company, right? So if we're nicely serving God, then God will give us everything that we need with which to serve him. We will have nothing, no lacking will be there. He'll give us whatever we need, and sometimes very, very nice facilities with which to serve him and his devotees and the world at large, if he desires that. This can also be like a distraction, but we see some devotees, they are endowed with so much wealth and so much power and position because they are rightfully using that in the service of Krishna and God. So he trusts them with that and gives them so much facility. So, all of our senses, they should be used for God's purpose, and that is the proper position. Everything, whatever you see, that belongs to God. This is, this it's such a simple point, but if we can really, really, really understand this, really just saturate our very self with this understanding, we can achieve so much happiness and in connection with Krishna. Prabhupada is saying, it is our misunderstanding that we are claiming anything as belonging to us. We are thinking that we are the proprietors of this world. Like America, you are now claiming this land as your property. But is it a fact that this belongs to you? Are you the actual proprietor of this land? Hundreds of years ago, you were not the proprietor, but the land was still there. And when you leave, The land will still be there, but you will no longer be the proprietor. So who is the proprietor of this land for all time? The land belongs to God, and everything belongs to God. Prabhupada is saying this. We say that we have manufactured this typewriter, but the ingredients of this typewriter, the iron, have we manufactured the iron? No, the iron is received from the mines, Prabhupada is saying. It is given by God. Nobody can manufacture iron. Nobody can manufacture anything. They can only transform one thing to another. They can bring the iron out from the mine, they can melt it, and they can transform the shape of the metal in a different way. But they cannot produce iron. They cannot produce anything. Wood, iron, earth, anything. So the real proprietor is God. Everything belongs to God. This is God consciousness. One who is in God consciousness, he is a perfect man. A perfect man. So that's a powerful understanding that Prabhupada is giving. That if we can understand this point, then we can become perfect. If we can truly, truly understand this, that everything in this world has been given to us by God Himself, and it should be used for His purposes because He is the owner of it, then we can be perfect. We can be God conscious and use it all in His service. And then He will give us more things with which to serve Him. Right? Like when Lord Brahma creates this universe, He doesn't even create all the material ingredients with which to create it. Krishna gives him everything that he needs. Srila Gurudev would say that like if you work at the factory, if you work at a factory manufacturing cars, like the Ford company, then all the ingredients for the car are given. The bumper, the wheel, the engine, all the parts, everything is given to you, and you simply assemble it and put it together like a Lego set. So Gurudev would say that in this way, Lord Brahma, he's creating the universe. Krishna is giving him all the ingredients with which to create the universe. He's simply putting it together and melting the iron and transforming all these things into different shapes. But he's not producing anything. And so Prabhupada is saying, everything is given by God. Nobody can manufacture iron. We cannot manufacture all these things. So we have to think, where did all these things come from? And who do we have to thank for all of these things? Who is the actual owner of all these things? Even this land, we're thinking it belongs to us, but really, nothing. Nothing belongs to us. Everything belongs to God. And therefore, we should give up all of this false ego that we even belong to ourselves and that anything belongs to us. How can we engage this thing in God's service? How can we engage this wood in God's service? How can we engage this ink in God's service? How can we engage this earth in God's service? That's what arti is. When we do arti ceremony, we're engaging all the different elements in serving God. And everything is meant to please Him. Just like if we have love for anybody in particular, we're thinking, how can we use everything that we see to please them? Either please their senses, their eyes, their nose, their tongue, anything. And so if we have this love for God, we will think, how can we use this for him. But even if we don't have love for God, we should understand that he is the ultimate owner of that. And like Srila Gurudev would say, you cannot create an ant, so you shouldn't kill an ant. If you cannot create something, you should not destroy it. And so we can't create anything. And, right, so we understand again that how can we use our words in God's service? Our intelligence has been given to us. Some people are not very intelligent. Some people cannot speak. Some people cannot walk. So all of this facility, all of this power, the power of using our hands, the power of using our eyes, this is all given to us by God. And so therefore we should think how we can use it for him and in his service. So if we can understand that, then we become perfect. And Prabhupada is saying here that Bhagavan is being referred to here, speaking to Arjuna. And Bhagavan means that he is full in all opulences. Bhaga means opulence. And he is saying that there are 6 opulences. There's wealth, strength, fame, beauty, knowledge, and renunciation. We've talked about this before. And he's saying that fame is an opulence. That Lord Jesus Christ, the whole world knows who is Jesus Christ. Everyone knows who Krishna is. Everyone knows who the President of America is, like this. Everyone knows who Mahatma Gandhi is. They are famous. So fame is also like an opulence. Nobody knows a random person on the street, but everybody knows who some famous actor is or some famous athlete. Rockefeller. This is also an opulence. Also, he's saying the Rockefellers, they are very rich, and everyone knows who they are. So they are opulent by wealth. They have so much wealth. This is also an opulence. Somebody is also opulent by strength. They are very strong, and therefore they have that opulence. And then beauty. People are also very well known for beauty. Some people are very beautiful. This is an opulence. And therefore he attracts people. One man or woman is very beautiful. So Prabhupada is saying anything that attracts, that is called opulence. A wealthy man attracts. A strong man attracts. A famous man attracts. Like Prabhupada says, if a famous man comes here, then everybody will come and gather to receive him and greet him. These are all opulences. Knowledge, renunciation. And anyone who possesses all of these 6 opulences in full, he is God. That is the definition of God. And he's saying that Krishna had so much wealth. He had 16,108 wives. And for each of them, he built a palace. And all those palaces were very nice, having no need of any electricity or light, because they were made of jewels. And so this is God, Prabhupada is saying. He is all-powerful. There's no other historical record of someone being this rich or powerful. And he is so beautiful. He's more beautiful than anyone. He's called, Krishna means the all-attractive. And he's ever youthful. So Prabhupada is saying that the sign of God is that he is ever youthful. He is always looking like 16 to 24 years old. Also in knowledge, Krishna is so opulent in knowledge that he spoke these teachings of Bhagavad Gita, and even to this day, the greatest scholars in the world are studying this Bhagavad Gita and still reading it, trying to understand it. It is so high and so deep with knowledge made by Krishna. Therefore, no ordinary man can be confused with God. So that's an important point to quickly touch on, is that no ordinary man can be God. And so there are people in this world that think that everything should be used in their service. And they are confusing themselves with God. Some people are thinking that they themselves are God and that everyone is God. But this is not the proper understanding. There's a philosophy of poor Narayan, where even the beggar on the street is God. But why would God make himself a beggar and subject himself to that kind of life? This does not make any sense. So instead of thinking that we are God and that everything should be used in our service, we should understand who is Bhagavan, who is possessing all opulence, the greatest beauty, strength, wealth, knowledge, renunciation, and fame, and use everything in his service instead of our service or the service of any other mundane person in this world. There are many people who have so much wealth and so much knowledge and so much facility, but they don't acknowledge God. They don't perhaps even believe in God, and they are simply looking for everyone else to worship them and enjoy their senses until they die. But this will not make them happy, and this will not make anyone else happy, because they cannot reciprocate with all the living entities. Anyone cannot do what God can do. Like Krishna, he accepted 16,108 wives, right? Any normal person in this world could not accept that many wives and build them that many palaces and give them that many children like this. But God can. Now Prabhupada is saying that Krishna, Arjuna has accepted Krishna as his spiritual master here, his teacher. And now Krishna is beginning to tell Arjuna, he's beginning to rebuke him and be heavy with him in order to remove his confusion and his doubt. And he's saying that, telling Arjuna, although you are speaking very learned words, you are mourning for what is not worthy of grief. Those who are wise lament neither for the living nor for the dead. And really, he's saying that, oh Arjuna, you are a fool. You do not know how things are going on. You would not lament like this if you understood reality. A learned man does not lament for the living or the dead. This means that you are a fool. You are not intelligent. Because there's a distinction between the body and the soul. This is something Krishna will go into in much more detail later, and we will talk about more later. But you should understand that the soul is immortal. The soul will never die. As soon as the body is finished, the soul will simply go to another body. And so, like Srila Gurudev, he was saying earlier, that Krishna is telling Arjuna, if you think that you don't kill, if you won't kill them, then do you think that they won't still die? Everyone here will still die, regardless of whether you kill them or not, because this body is bound to be destroyed by material nature. So whether you are killing them or not is irrelevant. And anyhow, the soul is immortal, and it will simply go to another location, another body. So you do not understand. And you've never actually met the soul present in the body. There's another story that I don't think I'll get into at the moment, but perhaps very quickly. There's one story told in the Srimad Bhagavatam, and this one king, he died on the battlefield, and the family around him was mourning so much. His wife and children and relatives were all crying and crying and crying for this person that had died. And the Lord of Death, Yamaraj, came there in disguise of a little boy and asked everybody, "Oh, why are you weeping?" And they said, "Oh, little boy, you won't understand. You should go and play." The boy said, "No, I think I understand better than you do. So can you please tell me what's going on here?" And they said, "Oh, this man has died." And the little boy said, "What do you mean he's died? His body's, he's right there. Why don't you he's just sleeping. Why don't you just wake him up and talk to him again?" And the family said, "No, little boy, you don't understand. His soul has left his body and has gone somewhere else." And the boy said, "Oh, the soul has left the body? Did you ever meet this soul? Do you know how big it is, how small it is, how fat it is, how skinny it is, what color it is? Do you know anything about this soul? What is its name? What is it like? What is its personality? Do you have any understanding?" They said, "Oh, no, we've never met this soul." And the boy said, "Okay, then why are you weeping over this soul that you have never met, which is gone somewhere else, and they're not even thinking about you?" And even if everyone in the whole world will weep for this person, it will not make him return. So weeping will not make him return back to life. So why are you weeping? And the family became more sober, and they could understand that we are all bound to die, and that we should not lament for anyone who has died or anyone who is living, because the soul is completely transcendental to all these things. So we should understand the distinction between the body and the soul. This is the very first instruction that Krishna is giving Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita. And a learned man can understand this difference. This is something Krishna will speak about a lot in the following verses, so we won't talk about it too much. So one last quick point that I'll end with, that I was thinking about in regards to this, is that Krishna is chastising Arjuna. He's rebuking him. He's saying, oh, you think that you are speaking very learned words, but really you are a fool. You are fool number one. You don't understand. And the teacher has a right to rebuke the student for making some mistake or doing something incorrectly. This is the relationship between teacher and student, guru and disciple. That the disciple, the apprentice, is imperfect, and the perfect man is adjusting things accordingly and trying to help the imperfect man understand how he can be perfect. And there's one verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Tato du sangam uchidya satsu sa jeta buddhiman santa evasya chindanti mano vyasangam uktibi. That we should give up bad association. Tato du sangha. Du sangha means bad, do, sangha, association. Utsrija, we should throw it away. We should give it up. And satsu sajeta buddhiman, one who is intelligent, he will take the association of pure devotees of the Lord, saintly personalities. And what will those saintly personalities do? What will that good association do? Santa evasya chindanti mano vyasangam uktivi. That those santas, those saints, will, with their uktibi, with their words, their chindanti, their very sharp words, they will cut up all of our mano vyasanga, all of our material attachment that we have to this world, with our mind and our senses. So much attachment. By their very strong words, they will cut up all of our material attachments. And so their words can be very sharp at times, because all of these attachments are very hard knots in the heart. And we should very readily accept these very sharp words. And what are those words? Right? That we are no better than an animal. We are thinking that we are happy in this world, but we are ignorant of our suffering and hopelessly trying to enjoy our material senses. We are not understanding that everything belongs to God and should be used in His service. And like Srila Gurudev, he was saying today, you don't understand that you're working very hard like donkeys. You're more wretched than donkeys, doing so much hard labor day and night when you cannot even take a single hair with you after you leave. And that you think you are very beautiful now, but all of your beauty will go away. We've talked about this many times before. Gurudev said, very eagerly, old age is waiting for you to embrace you, whether you want it or not. And that you are always so much busy and working and collecting money, but you don't know that none of this can go with you, and that you are not this body. And you're thinking this is your first and your last birth, but that you've been doing this lifetime after lifetime, since time without beginning, trying to enjoy, but you were never satisfied. And that this body is just a bag of stool and urine and pus and blood. And you can never be happy by all of these temporary things. And that you should try to realize all these things and chant the holy name. So Gurudev, he would give so many examples of how we are in ignorance, how we are like donkeys, like hogs and dogs and pigs and camels and asses, just wasting our lives away like the most wretched kind of animals, simply engaged in sex life and collecting money and not understanding the purpose of this human life, which awards one the intelligence with which to discriminate between matter and spirit and ultimately become liberated from endless suffering. Like Prabhupada was saying, only animals are not understanding that they are not suffering, or not understanding that they are suffering, rather. And so we should use this human form of life, not being engaged in all of this lust and sense enjoyment and so many things. Otherwise we are no better than animals. And that we should chant the holy name. And Gurudev is saying here that if you will not love Krishna, then you will give your love to boyfriends and girlfriends. But you will die and your boyfriend or girlfriend will die, Gurudev is saying. And then after that, still you will not be satisfied and happy. And we've talked about this before. He's saying, if we can be happy by boyfriends and girlfriends and getting married and all these things, then why do they divorce so many times like animals? And still they are not happy. And that is why we should try to chant the holy name from the beginning and not give importance to worldly things. And in so many other ways, the very sharp words of Guru and Vaishnavas and Krishna himself, right? It's described in the Bhagavatam that a man is no better than a dancing dog in the hands of a woman. And so many other very harsh realities. Prahlad Maharaj is explaining to his father that those who are trying to enjoy this material world are simply chewing the chewed and trying to extract very, very meager happiness from the objects of this world. And it is hopeless. It's hopeless. It's simply the blind leading the blind in an endless cycle of suffering and sorrow. And they will tell us that if we are not serving God, right, if we are not using everything in God's service, then we must go to hell. We must be punished for that, because we are not the proprietor of all these things. We are bound to be fired and punished for this. So in so many different ways, they're cutting all of our material attachments and inspiring us and attracting us to go to the spiritual world, where we can enjoy service to Krishna for all eternity, helping us to understand what is reality, how to be happy, which is our ultimate aim. So Srila Gurudev, the last thing I'll say is that, again, here Gurudev is saying today in Hawaii in 2004 that I have only come to remind you of the words of my Shiksha Guru, Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, the words that he has given you. And that he's coming to give the same message as Krishna himself, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. And that I'm only coming to remind you of his words. And so we're reading here the words of Srila Prabhupada, we constantly read the words of Krishna himself, the words of Srila Gurudev, the words of all of our acharyas, just so that we can constantly remember all these things, because it is very easy to forget all of these things. So we have to hear almost all these things again and again and again and again, until it really, 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 really sinks in. And again, I'll say it again and again and again, because Gurudev is saying, I'm coming to remind you. I'm coming to remind you. He said this many, 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 many times. I'm simply coming to remind you of these words. What words? The message of Mahaprabhu, the message of Rupa Goswami, that this life is like a drop of water on a lotus leaf. You can die at any moment. Do not waste this life. Whatever you are giving your attention to is where you will go. We are so distracted in this world. We're looking on our phones, we're watching so many movies and mundane things, and absorbing ourselves in material things, which is causing us ultimately to be bound to this material world. Later on in the Gita, Krishna says, whatever you meditate on, you will develop attachment for that. And wherever our attachment is, our consciousness will go towards. And we will ultimately will end in suffering if our attachment is going to anything except Krishna. And experiencing that eternal love with Him. And so, this life is so temporary. We see, even I saw some video the other day, this lady was on a bus and she was just sitting there, completely innocent, not doing anything, and somebody comes and stabs her and she died. This is the world that we live in. And it's very tragic, and it's very terrible. But it can happen at any moment. Gurudev said you could drive home this evening and get into a car crash, and you could die. And then where would you go? Krishna says, whatever you're thinking about, to that state you will attain. And so this opportunity is very serious and very grave and very temporary, this human life. It should not be wasted. It is like a very precious jewel. And again, we're thinking we are very happy. We're thinking we will live forever. We're thinking we're very beautiful and we can enjoy in this world. But we have not come to this world to enjoy. We have come to get out. This human life is meant to get out of this material world. So, chant Hare Krishna and be happy under the guidance of pure devotees. This is the essence of all advice. And go back home, back to Godhead, where we can be happy forever. This is the essence. So we have to constantly remember all of these things and remind ourselves and try to develop to the point where 24 hours a day we can be absorbed in God consciousness, in how we can engage all of our words, all of our senses, all of our activities in serving God. And like we were saying the other day, the very first duty of someone in the renounced order of life, is to make some literary contribution and discuss all of these important philosophical concepts. And also our gurus, they want us to go and preach and tell others about God and service to God, right? How do we please God? We tell other people that they should do everything to please God. So we practice ourselves, and we understand all these things ourselves and realize it ourselves, and then try and preach it. Achar and prachar, practice and preach. And these are the two principles. And then we'll find that we'll be very happy. Instead of searching after temporary sense enjoyment, we can know that we are pleasing our object of love and service, and we can be happy. Okay. Radhe Radhe, Hare Krishna.